Welcome first-time listeners and returners to the Sports Deli. The Sports Deli is sponsored by SportRx. SportRx is the leader in sports prescription eyewear. You can find them online at sportrx.com. And don't forget to enter the code DELI10 at checkout for your special 10% discount. A little bit about your hosts today, Hootie Hoot. I coached college basketball for 23 years, 15 on the men's side and 8 on the women. And I now coach at a low-income, first-generation high school girls basketball here in San Diego. I played 4 years of college basketball. I'm a life coach. I have a beautiful daughter. I'm a professional basketball skills trainer. We love to share space with our guests here in the Sports Deli to talk about the intersection between race and sports, mental health and sports, equality, empowerment, empathy, leadership, education, sports, and solutions. We want to help mobilize, listen, learn, and pay it forward. You can always send us an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com, and you can also DM us on Instagram at Mike Hootner or on Twitter at Michael Hootner. We're so honored that you're joining us today, and we hope that you can grab your favorite deli sandwich or bagel and your favorite beverage, and let's do this together in the Sports Deli. We are joined on this 27th day of Autism, Couple Appreciation, and Soy Foods Month by Franco-American James Coco Wade, head coach of the WNBA's Chicago Sky. Today is the third day of training camp as they prepare for the start of this historic 25th season of the WNBA in 18 days on the 14th day of May. The Sky opened up at 1 p.m. Eastern on May 15th against the 2019 WNBA champs, the Washington Mystics. Coach Wade was born in Memphis, Tennessee, where he attended North Side High. He was an old school 4-2-4 player, which meant he went to a 4-year school first, then to a 2-year community college, then a 4-year school again to finish his undergraduate eligibility. And he'll talk about that story a little bit later. He played professionally for 13 years in Russia, the Czech Republic, and France, among others. And before becoming the head coach of the Chicago Sky, he coached in France, Russia, with the Minnesota Lynx, as well as the San Antonio Stars of the WNBA, now known as the Las Vegas Aces, with my boy Bill Lambier. But how he actually started in the W is a lesson, and you never know who's watching and to expect the unexpected. While in San Antonio, he coached Becky Hammon, who's now an assistant coach with the San Antonio Spurs of the NBA under Greg Popovich, as well as Kayla Alexander, a previous guest of ours here in the Sports Deli. As an assistant coach for the 2017 Lynx, Coco won a WNBA title led by Maya Moore and current co-owner of the Atlanta Dream, Renee Montgomery. Coach Wade becomes the 10th WNBA player or coach to join us in the Sports Deli. He was named 2019 WNBA Coach of the Year and shares a birthday with the late Nipsey Hussle. His amazing wife played professional basketball for 18 years, including 5 in the WNBA. He's trilingual. His cousin is D. Wade, and later we will find out what the phrase "don't do the Memphis on her, please" means. And you don't want to miss the story as he explains later of what happened on a flight shortly after the death of George Floyd. You can find him on Twitter at Coach James Wade and on Instagram at Coco Wade. And of course, you can find all about the Chicago Sky at sky.wnba.com. Coach, today we bet on the women of the W and Coach Wade's amazing story. Welcome to the Sports Deli.
What's up, Coach?
How you doing, man? I had so much stuff, like
man,
I got a call right at the last minute,
you're good, man.
Hey,
All right, man.
There you go.
Let me show off some Chicago style a bit.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
That's what I'm talking about.
How you doing, man? Finally.
Good. Yeah, I know. It's all good, man. How's training camp going?
It's going, man. I can't complain too much. We still don't have everybody in, so that's the part that's a little bit I guess challenging.
Yeah.
You don't have, your group in and you're trying to get chemistry. So we got a couple of players or a few players coming in from overseas and they'll be in within the week or whatever. But after we have the protocols and they have to do negative tests. And so that's the tough part, but it's understandable.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. You made me sound like somebody, man. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, you're definitely the story of expect the unexpected, working hard. You just never know who's watching. Like I said, it's an incredible story because I didn't know much about you until I started doing some prep work. We do have something in common, though. My daughter's first word was Coco.
Oh yeah.
She had this like the big teddy, the big 4-foot teddy bear,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
she called it Coco out of nowhere.
Oh wow,
One day,
that's
so
amazing, man. That's
crazy.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So, you were introduced to ball when you were young, right? You had a Nerf ball, right? You play in the living room, you play in the bathtub. You
Yeah,
first
man.
started playing organized ball in ninth grade. So you've talked about this. You had your friend's dad as a coach,
Hmm.
in Memphis. So tell us a little bit about your introduction to ball from a young age.
So, like when I was younger, um, like my mom, dad, they bought me a little, Nerf basketball ball that I used to play with everywhere. And, you have all these toys, the choo-choo trains and all this stuff. And it's just what it's just what you
Yep.
gravitate to. And it's something that I just fell in love with at a younger age. It helped that I had cousins that were very good at a lot of sports. They were good in football, good in, basketball as well, track, whatever, you name it. And for some reason, the basketball is what gravitate. It's just pull me in. And
Yeah.
I liked other sports, but I never loved anything like I loved the game of basketball. And as time went on, we didn't really have the opportunities like the kids do now
Yeah.
to play organized basketball at 5, at 6, at 7, at 8 years old. So it was all about us playing with our friends and having these, not having dreams, but just dreaming about wanting to go play basketball the next day.
Yeah.
And so, as my cousins were older, they played in high school, and I saw them play in junior high, and I was too young. And so once I got to junior high school, that's when I was able to play organized basketball for the first time.
Yeah.
And then the love just kept going from there. And just being able to be with my friends, and playing for one of my friends' dads, Mr. Gaines, and he just showed us. He showed us what it was like to just be a good person and to be a good teammate, and that was a real important lesson from him. Because when you're kids, man, you're a little selfish and you have these little egos. But for him, it was all about discipline us and us working together. And that's where we were able to get like a team concept and know that it was more than just a game. It was actually, his way of teaching us about life. So it was
Yeah.
pretty cool and unique.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about this. We've done a lot of interviews with a lot of people, and you mentioned Nerf ball. My best friend, he was over my house all the time, and I had a full court Nerf hoop in my room. So on
Yeah,
each wall, we had the full court.
yeah.
And the more I think about it, I don't remember ever learning how to be physical
Right.
until I had those Nerf hoop and he was beating
Yeah.
me. Man, I would be livid if I would lose. I'd be leaning into him, trying to yoke it over him. Like, man, I just remembered it when you started talking about it. So the other thing you talked about, your friend's dad, coaching you. Shout out to Mr. E. He was, my dad committed suicide when I was 9, so I didn't have, um, you know, necessarily my paternal father to show me the way, and like other people do. But Mr. E, he's African American. He's still alive. When I go back to Detroit, I still visit him. And I had
Mhm.
other youth coaches, and like you, those things were invaluable. I didn't realize it until later, but the integration back then and through sports,
Yeah.
and what we all learn in locker rooms, and we talk about it all this time with our guests. If we could all follow the lead of how we play sports and what it teaches us, right, about the carryover into life and then life into sports, we could all evolve at a much quicker rate. So shout out to Mr. Gaines. And um, so you had good experiences in high school, but I do want to ask you about one thing because,
Yeah.
like you, I was short, and I'm from
Mhm.
Detroit, and I would go play, on the streets of Detroit, right? And we talk about this all the time on the show. People don't go out and play street ball anymore because everything's organized. You got AAU,
Yeah.
you got. I mean, I'm a skills coach, so that's part of my gig. But you have skills coaches,
Mhm.
and if you lose when you go play street ball, right, you got to wait an hour
Yeah, you're on the side, man.
You're on the
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
people are talking, whatever. And so that's changed. But it gave me a why.
Right.
I got cut 3 times, right? Once in middle school, once high school, and once in college. And the year after that, man, when I tell you every day I couldn't, work any harder because I was so irritated about what happened. But I also realized that I wasn't necessarily as good as I thought I was, sort of like
Right.
you.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
you went through that, right? So talk about that, and your initial thought process when you went to Middle Tennessee State, and
Mhm.
then what you thought about, what that was going to be like, and then reality check, and then what happened after that.
I wasn't mature enough.
Yeah.
And you think you're in this, I guess, this small bubble where you think that you're the one, and you get up there and you get kind of exposed a little bit because
Yeah.
these guys are further along. Not only are they quicker, bigger, more athletic, and more experienced, and smarter, but you have this maturity gap where they know their bodies are ready. So you have to maximize yourself, like going to sleep on time, eating right. And as a freshman, this is your first time away from home.
Yeah.
So you have to discipline yourself. Like, you can come in whenever you want. You can go to the school functions on Friday and Saturday nights when they have it, but you can't do that and be a successful athlete, especially one that's starting
Yeah.
from behind,
Well,
small.
and Middle Tennessee State is mid-major D1. Like, this isn't
Yeah.
some chump university. Like,
Nah,
this is
we
legit. This is
were
real
playing in
deal.
the OVC at the time,
Yeah.
and
Wow, Valley. Yep.
and so that was like, that was a tough adjustment, and I just wasn't ready physically, and I wasn't ready mentally. And I was like, it was going to take me some time. I knew I was going to get there, and I think everybody saw that I had potential. It's just that I wasn't serious enough. And I think it was, I don't know, sometime before Christmas, where like the father of PJ Washington, that plays for Charlotte,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Paul Washington, he was my teammate at Middle at the time.
Wow.
And he was like, you know what? And he had just he came from JUCO. He
Mhm.
transferred there from JUCO, and we were in his apartment, like he was in some like apartment dorms,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And he was talking to me. He was like, I'm just going to keep it real with you. If you go to JUCO, you're going to develop quicker. It's going to give you time to get your strength up. It's going to give you time to be more mature. To like, it was the first person that talked to me like,
Wow.
like it gave me advice. And I'm 18, 19. He's 21, and he's talking to me, and he's like, it's the first time I had all these cousins that played, and
Hmm.
and I was just closed minded because I had my mindset
Yeah.
one way. And he told me, he was like, hey, Paul was like, you go to JUCO, and it's going to change your life because you're going to get a chance to mature.
Mhm.
You're going to get a lot of exposure. Like, here, you're not playing a lot, so
Yeah.
you get better during games, and you need to
Right.
play.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it, and after, I was reluctant at first, and I just decided where I wanted to go, and I just took it from there, and I was able to actually, once I got there, I can see, because I had been practicing and playing with these D1 guys. When I went to JUCO, I was a little bit faster, a little bit quicker, more athletic. So I was able to actually express that and grow into it. And so the year that I was in JUCO and the next year forward, I saw a big growth from one summer to the next, and my body, and just getting stronger and getting quicker, getting more explosive.
Mhm.
And so I was able to have a good year, and then I went to Kennesaw State, and was able to have two great years there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the other thing that people don't really understand, right? One of my players ended up at Cal,
Hmm.
for Coach Braun, who was on the show also, and walk-ons. You gotta have a certain mentality as a walk-on, because you better be killing the game if you're gonna take time and minutes away from players that are on scholarship. So that's the hard part of it. And so how satisfying is it to look back now, to know, even though it was difficult at the time, that you were a late bloomer, and that the grind evolved later, but it actually helped you to evolve that way.
So it's like, you have all these dreams where you want to be a finished product, and you have these goals, And I think the one thing that hurt me and that really could help a lot of young players right now is you have to have a plan, a realistic plan, and that's what gets you to the steps that you. And I never had a plan. I just had I had goals and I knew how to work hard, but I never like really sat down and said, "Hey, this is my plan. This is how I'm going to achieve it."
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just going on a whim and adjusting and adapting to each situation as they came along. And it's pretty satisfying now. I don't have the same story that a lot of these, great players have. It was a story with a lot of ups and downs, and it's molded me to to the coach that I am, to the person that I am, and I didn't realize it until later on that it's helped me out more than I could have ever imagined.
I want to sort of incorporate music into all this, and because Rashawn McLeod was on the show, and he brought that into the conversation. I thought it was fascinating. And then today I was listening to Clubhouse, and they had a conversation about sneakers. And so those two things, those two intersections are, sort of impactful in people's lives, especially in the Black and brown community. You were in the South, I was in the Midwest. So did those two things impact you, while you were growing up?
I mean, definitely music. You just it drives your mood, it drives your motivation, and it gives you hope. Certain points when the poets talk to you, and it gives you confidence. Like, okay, a change is going to come. Like, so it motivated me to like have hope. And when you hear about certain stories, and you think, hey, I want my story to match like this, but what you don't gain until later is everybody is so different, and each story is supposed to be told differently, and this is mine, and I'm appreciative of it. And so music helped me with that as well. Music helped me with that. I wasn't a big sneakerhead when I was growing up because I couldn't afford them. But I always liked them, and my mom, she did the best she could, and now I guess that's like I'm a bit of a sneakerhead now. Like I love my sneakers, and I have a lot. I have them everywhere, actually, like in different countries, different places.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's hard to choose which ones I want to take. But no, I mean that really wasn't, the sneaker piece wasn't as part of my I didn't have a pair of Jordans. I didn't have a pair of Jordans till I was like an adult, I think. I didn't, and I used to love Jordans, but I was like I couldn't afford them. So and it was weird. And so that was the first thing when I had my son, I bought him a pair of Jordans. It was like the first thing I got him, because I couldn't afford any until I was an adult. Like I was maybe 23, 24 when I got my first pair of Jordans, man.
Yeah.
I
want to thank citylokes.com, where you can get your own personalized hats and phone cases, tees, accessories, and much, much more. I ordered 2 hats, and they're amazing. One of them says the Sports Deli, and it has a California license plate, and the other one has a Michigan license plate and says "Speak Up and Dribble, Black Lives Matter." So check them out at citylokes.com, and don't forget to enter the code The Sports Deli at checkout for your special 10% discount. Thanks again for joining us today in the Sports Deli. And now back to this incredible interview with Coach Coco Wade, head coach of the WNBA's Chicago Sky. I was an assistant or a volunteer, or both actually, for 15 years before I ever became a head coach, or actually got truly paid to be a coach.
Okay.
And I was making money other ways, so it didn't really matter. But the point is, if you're doing what you love and you love what you're doing, it doesn't really matter as long as you're making ends meet, right? And so you've always been a genuine person. You've always been doing things for the right reasons, and not necessarily looking to use people to get a leg up or things like that, and how you got to this place. So it really pretty quickly, quite honestly.
Yeah, it was pretty like I want to say lucky. I've never been. I know how people are. Like I'm a very ambitious person, but I'm ambitious for me. Like I don't try to use people as vessels or
Yeah.
try to meet the right people or anything. I've never been like that, and it's and maybe and I've seen people who are like that and they've actually progressed or gone further along and been ahead, but it just wasn't me because I like to invest in relationships. I like to invest in people. I like to, and I also I need to have a clean reputation. Like I still have my faults. So just like everybody, like
Yeah.
but I need to just be as straight and narrow as possible, and that's just how I am. My mother, my wife, they're the same. It's like you don't know who's watching you. You always have to
Yeah.
catch yourself. My mother was the I always have a pair of clean underwear on type person, like you never know what can happen, or you never
Yay.
know,
Yep.
you always say excuse me, always say thank you, and but I've never been, it's just me though. It's just
Yeah.
me. So, the coaching thing really happened because, a conversation, and I carried myself the right way. I
Yeah.
wasn't, doing anything crazy, or, when my wife played, I would just come to the games, cheer for her and go back home. And when I see the coaching staff or when I see the players, I would speak and say hello, and it just came down to somebody taking a chance on me. And I can honestly say, like the biggest thing for me, as far as being a basketball player and a basketball coach, when you're a basketball player, you have, like, when I was young, when I had all these dreams and goals,
Yeah.
no plan, but all these dreams and goals, and I was like, I want to do this, I want to go to the NBA, I want to do this, I want to do that, you know, and when I was when I first came into the coaching world, I didn't have any expectations.
Yeah.
Like, I could have been an intern for 5 years. I think I said that the other day on
Yeah.
I could have been an assistant for 20 years. I was okay with. I thought I was just going to be a junior high coach, and I did make a plan though. I did make
Yeah.
a plan, and I said, "This is what I want." Wrote it down, and I wrote down three things that I wanted to be in 5 years. You know, and then I closed the book and I left it where it was in the nightstand, and I never looked at it. And
Hmm.
stuff has been happening according to that plan, and it happened even faster than I wrote it in the book, and
Right.
so I'm just appreciative of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to ask you. So I coached men 15 years
Mhm.
at the college level, and so this is my 15th year. I can't believe it on the women's side. So this is my 30th year
Wow.
starting off. It's crazy.
Wow.
And I don't know.
Congratulations, man. Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
But and there's been a lot of interesting experiences. And actually, I was scared off in the beginning.
Mhm.
One of my former players' dads was a D1 coach, and he's like, "You don't want this life." And I went to the conventions, and it was crazy. And I met Coach Lav a long time ago, and still good friends with him. So on the women's side, it's different. As
Right.
I sort of frame this question for you, obviously you're on the men's side as a player, but
Right.
how difficult was it to make the transition? You didn't necessarily coach on the men's side, but coaching the women, it's different, right? Because I know I've done it for 15 years on both sides, and there's some differences, and I had to learn along the way real quick because I had no idea, about some of these differences just physically, and just in other
Yeah.
ways, right? You're laughing
Yeah.
about it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so talk about that. And did it speak to you right away? Because like for me, it spoke to me right away. Like I was like, man, I wish I'd have gone on the women's side earlier because of the collaboration's different, the energy's different. I just
Right.
not that I wasted time on the men's side, but I'm just glad I found it when I did.
So the thing that I had a little, like, I guess a leg up, or the thing that helped me out so much is the fact that before I even got into coaching, me and my wife had been married for almost 10 years. We had been together for like 11 or 12 years or something.
Yeah.
And so I was able to, during my professional basketball career, we were actually together like for most of my professional basketball career. So
Wow.
I was able to actually be in tune with a lot of things that was going on with her and, with her basketball. And we paid as much attention to hers as we did mine.
That's
And
awesome.
we collaborated a lot on our thoughts, for our entire, careers together. And so it gave me like an insight
Yeah.
on a professional women's basketball player's mindset, what they want, the instruction that they need, and so I was able to kind of be in that space in a little more comfortable position because I was around that space, and it wasn't as much of a shock for me because my wife played at the highest level, so
Yeah.
that helped me out tremendously. Like it helped me out tremendously, and she helps me out constantly to this day. Like she's somebody that just gives me advice, and especially when it comes to players, and you're trying to get a whole, just an understanding of things that you can do better, and how would a player see this or how would a player see that. So having an ex-player in the house with you and able to communicate with you, and she's a general manager right now of a basketball team in France. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my cheat sheet, my human cheat sheet that I don't claim to know everything, but she helps me out tremendously and kind of guides me in places where I'm blind.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, and you need that, right? Whether it's at
Yeah,
home or on the court,
yeah,
off the
yeah,
court. Yeah, and during your probably initial days of coaching and her initial days of playing to now, the game's evolved.
yeah,
Like you don't have 1 through 6 that can play. Like you got 1 through 12 that can play. The
yeah,
skill
man,
sets now is ridiculous, and
yeah,
expansion's coming, which it should. Expanded
right,
rosters will come because there's just too many players. We
yeah,
could talk about, players having to, risk injuries by playing overseas, and having to do both seasons, which is crazy. So eventually, hopefully that pay gap changes and things like that.
right.
But so tell everybody what "don't do the Memphis honor, please" means. Obviously, I talked to your wife before. Yeah, come on.
Well, so in Memphis, we're just special people, and
Of course, yeah.
I was raised in uh, I get it from my mom. Like my mom, she's brutally honest,
Yeah.
and she kind of lets you know how she's feeling, and however she's feeling it, you're gonna know. And that's my wife. When I get disappointed or when I get anxious, I'm gonna let you know how I'm feeling, and sometimes it doesn't come out in a way that is, in a way that is calm.
Right.
And so my wife calls that doing the Memphis. And so she's so when I say, like, yeah, today was a hard day or something like that, she's like, I hope you didn't do the Memphis on nobody. I'm
That's classic.
like, yeah. And it's like that sometimes when you have a younger team that you're less patient when you
Yeah.
should probably be more patient, but you just want them to get it so bad. And so now I think as my team has gotten older and
Yeah.
more experienced, I'm a little bit more calmer. So
Yeah.
but it
Well,
comes time to time.
yeah, well, and obviously as a head coach, the pressures that come along with that. But you have Candace now, right? And so
Helps, right?
that's
It helps a lot. Helps a lot.
yeah, that helps a lot. And so it's interesting because I just know at the college level you can do a lot of things you can't do at the pro level, right? Like you said,
Right.
it's about relationships.
Yeah.
It's about Candace, handle this.
Yeah.
You got some new pieces. Lexi's coming in. D Brown's daughter, and she's trying to find her game, right? She wants to improve her game as a point guard, and so that's just everyone's trying to evolve, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
it's very competitive, and you want to evolve. You want to show that you can grow as a coach, and so do you have more patience for players that are putting in the extra time before practice or after practice or watching more film? Does that help you say, man, they're doing everything I ask, and it'll come?
It's been I've been pretty fortunate to have a hardworking team across the board.
Yeah.
So Like when we have practices, it's, we don't have players leave the gym right away. We have all our players show up early. So they work hard. So I think that, maybe the impatience comes from, just being too repetitive when you have to be too repetitive. But it's, it's just that you want them to see how important it is to you. And after you communicated with them. So it never gets to a level where it's bad, but it happens with players. Like, even if they do know, sometimes they need to be motivated a little bit more. Because the fatigue and everything that comes along with it, and just life gets in the way. And sometimes you need that extra push. So that's my job. That's the coaching staff's job to push them sometime. And sometimes pushing them means that you have to get up under their skin sometimes. And it's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know that. I want to give props to PSK Collective. Be inspired in PSK, where their clothing promotes inclusivity, empowerment, and equality by supporting female athletes through the Women's Sports Foundation. You can find them online at pskcollective.com or at Walmart. Thanks again for joining us today in the Sports Deli. And now back to this incredible interview with Coach Coco Wade, head coach of the WNBA's Chicago Sky. Let's talk a little bit about just the league in general, because obviously the last year between the pandemic and social injustice, which is a big part of what we like to talk about from my standpoint, white privilege, and we've said this before, that 180 women changed an election, but there's a lot of layers to this. My perspective, your perspective, the collective perspective. I just watched something on CNN where police officers in Sacramento are doing virtual and real training as a result of what's been going on the last, long time, but especially in particular the last year, to work on de-escalation and work on these scenario-based situations. And so it's difficult. I don't want to speak for you, but from previous guests in the Black and Brown community, I know it's exhausting to continue to talk about it. It's mostly a white issue. Countries, even though there's more opportunities for the Black and Brown community, there are still internal issues that have to be worked out. But that's not my focus. My focus is my question is, how proud were you, or maybe even surprised, that the impact that your team and the team as a whole had? Because it'll go down, in my opinion, historically, as one of the most incredible things, not only in political history, but in American history, how when Reverend Warnock was polling at 9%, him and the other senator won the election because of what was going on with Kelly Loeffler. And we talked to Coach Collin about this, but it really speaks to the sum of the parts are greater than the parts themselves.
Right.
And everyone that's come before them, whether it's Kareem, Maya Moore, taking time off from her career to fight for her now husband, Muhammad Ali, so it speaks to a lot of things, but it can't be overstated enough what an incredible endeavor it was during a pandemic. And so how looking back on it, reflecting back on it, do you still feel the same way, or are you even more proud now?
I mean, I'm proud. I'm very proud. And the fact that we knew that, and it goes back to, Philando Castile getting, tragically shot, by a police officer in his car. And you had the players in Minnesota stand up, and you had other people follow, other teams follow. And you had other demonstrations, whether it was Los Angeles demonstrating in the finals against Minnesota. You had different demonstrations, different things. But for some reason, they weren't as publicized, or, they didn't carry the weight that, what other athletes from other, sports teams from other sports leagues were doing. And but they were the first people to actually speak up since a long time. When you talk about major sports teams and major sports leagues, and they always stood for what was right and never held their tongue. And so this year, while the world was still, right? While the world wasn't really moving and wasn't as distracted, they were able to have eyes and ears focused and concentrated on them, where, you know, this is what they do. And for them to affect the election like they did, and for the world to actually take notice and actually take time to hear what they were saying, it was something that was special, and it'll go down as very special. And now other people are starting to recognize that the WNBA has been a place where the players have, you know, talked about and been about social justice issues and equality. And it's just a special league to be a part of. And I'm so proud of that. I tell you that much.
Just incredible. I want to give props to PSK Collective. Be inspired in PSK, where their clothing promotes inclusivity, empowerment, and equality by supporting female athletes through the Women's Sports Foundation. You can find them online at pskcollective.com or at Walmart. One of the reasons that I've always loved basketball and team sports is because I've always loved to be inspired. But in particular, I've always loved to be inspired by being a part of something bigger than myself. And, you know, we really learn at a young age in team sports about self-sacrifice and commitment and discipline, selflessness. But one of the other things that we learn is how the sum of the parts are greater than the parts themselves. And if the W last year, and really for a long time now, being at the forefront for a lot of these types of issues, doesn't epitomize that point about the sum of the parts being bigger than the parts themselves, not only on the court and the collaboration and the love and the support that the players and the coaches have for one another, but off the court in such a powerfully historical perspective. I don't really know what does. And I know, as an outsider looking in, it was just a roller coaster of emotions last year, not only because of the pandemic, but because of George Floyd and, you know, the accumulation of these deaths and the emotions of people, understandably, as a result of these police officers not handling these situations properly and these murders. And I can't even imagine what it must have been like for you to literally be a part of history and be, you know, on the inside and really just letting the women of the W take the lead and seeing them as leaders, as powerful influencers and connectors. Seeing that side of them must have just blown you away, and just another example of how to expect the unexpected. And as long as you're paying attention, magical things will come into your path when you least expect them to. We hope you enjoyed part 1 of this incredible interview with James Coco Wade, head coach of the WNBA's Chicago Sky and the 2019 WNBA Coach of the Year. And we hope that you listen to part 2 of the interview, which opens with a story of when Coach Wade was on an airplane after the death of George Floyd with his team on the way to the Wubble and what happened during that flight. Remember, your voice matters when fighting systemic racism. Read a book, acknowledge your white privilege, watch a movie about institutional racism, call your local or state representatives, and or have a conversation with someone that doesn't look like you. We have to change the economic, educational, police, housing, prison, and voting suppression narratives that currently need to be changed in this country. And the only way to do that is to listen and learn and then help be a part of the mobilization and change that we want to see. Remember, you can always send us an email to thesportsdeli@gmail.com. Until next time, please mask up still. Remember, Black Lives Matter. Peace.